In recent years, the press and social networks have often spread sensational information about NASA discovering a golden planet floating in the universe, which is said to contain such a huge amount of precious metals that if divided equally among all humanity, everyone would become a millionaire. However, in reality, NASA has never announced the existence of a planet made of gold. The truth behind this news comes from the U.S. Space Agency's research on an asteroid called 16 Psyche, located in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Asteroid 16 Psyche was discovered in the 19th century, in 1852, by Italian astronomer Annibale de Gasparis. Unlike most other asteroids that are mainly made of rock or ice, Psyche is special in that its main component is metal, specifically iron and nickel. Observational data from ground-based telescopes and probes show that Psyche reflects light in a very different way than typical rocky asteroids, suggesting that its surface may contain a large proportion of metals. In addition to iron and nickel, scientists predict that there may be small amounts of rare metals such as gold, platinum, iridium, or palladium. This detail has sparked sensational theories about a golden planet floating in space. In terms of size, Psyche has an average diameter of about 220 kilometers, making it one of the largest asteroids in the main belt. Given its enormous mass and rich metal composition, Psyche's assumed economic value is estimated by researchers to be up to 10 trillion US dollars, or 10 to the 19 USD, a figure far exceeding the global gross domestic product, or GDP. However, it is important to emphasize that this is only a calculation based on the current market price of precious metals on Earth. In reality, if such a large amount of metal were actually mined and brought back, the market would lose its scarcity, the price of gold or platinum would collapse, making this figure completely unrepresentative of the real value. More importantly, 16 Psyche could provide scientists with a window in time to observe the formation of the solar system. One prominent hypothesis is that Psyche could be the remaining core of a protoplanet that existed billions of years ago but was destroyed by a giant collision. If this hypothesis is correct, studying Psyche would help us better understand the structure of the cores of Earth and other rocky planets, which are deep below the surface and cannot be directly accessed. In short, the so-called golden planet is actually just a fancy way of describing the asteroid 16 Psyche. It is not a celestial body made of pure gold, but rather a mixture of iron, nickel, and possibly some precious metals. Psyche's true value lies not in its ability to make all of humanity millionaires, but in its enormous scientific potential, opening up new understandings about the formation and evolution of the planets in our solar system.
Why is there a rumor that each person gets 2.19 million USD? The origin of the number each person gets 2.19 million USD comes from a simple division calculation based on the assumed total value of the asteroid 16 Psyche. As analyzed, many studies suggest that Psyche may contain a huge amount of metal, including iron, nickel, and a small proportion of gold, platinum, and other rare metals. If the total amount of this metal is converted to the current market value on Earth, it is estimated to be about 10 trillion USD, or 10 to the 19th USD. When this information was made public, many news sites and social networks took the number 10 trillion USD and divided it by the world population of about 7.9 to 8 billion people, from which each person would receive about 2.19 million USD if this asset were divided equally. This is the basis for the news that is spread widely in the online community, causing curiosity and excitement about a cosmic treasure for mankind. However, it is necessary to understand that this is just a hypothetical problem on paper. In reality, this idea faces at least 3 major barriers. First, in terms of technology, humans currently do not have the ability to mine and transport a huge amount of metal from space to Earth. Mining technologies on the Moon or on celestial bodies near Earth are still in the idea or early testing stage. Bringing millions of tons of metal from an asteroid hundreds of millions of kilometers away is a challenge beyond current capabilities. Second, in terms of economics, the calculation of the value of 10 trillion USD is based on the assumption that the metal from Psyche can be sold on the market at current prices. But this does not reflect the law of supply and demand. If a huge amount of gold or platinum were to flood the market, scarcity would disappear, leading to a serious decline in value. At that time, gold could become cheap, no longer holding the position of reserve assets or luxury jewelry as it does today. Therefore, the story of 2.19 million USD per person is only imaginary, cannot be applied in reality. Third, legally and politically, even if mining technology exists, it is impossible to divide the value of an asteroid equally among all of humanity. Current international space treaties, such as the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, do not have specific provisions on ownership of resources mined from celestial bodies. This will lead to complex disputes between countries and mining corporations, instead of a scenario of fair distribution for all people. So, the figure of $2.19 million per person is meant only as a fun calculation to help the public visualize the theoretical value of Psyche compared to economic standards on Earth. It does not reflect the reality of feasibility, nor is it the goal that NASA is aiming for. Instead, NASA and the scientific community are interested in Psyche mainly for its scientific research significance, to understand the structure of the core of the early planet and the formation of the solar system.
The scientific significance of studying Psyche. When it comes to the asteroid 16 Psyche, most of the public is often interested in the economic aspect, specifically the enormous metal value it can bring. However, from the perspective of NASA and planetary scientists, Psyche is not simply a cosmic gold mine. What makes it a special target in space exploration programs is its enormous scientific value, capable of helping humans decipher part of the mystery of the formation and evolution of planets in the solar system. First of all, Psyche is considered a window into the planet's core. Scientists hypothesize that Psyche may be the remaining core of a small planet that was destroyed by giant collisions billions of years ago in the early stages of the formation of the solar system. Rocky planets like Earth, Mars, and Venus all have metallic cores at their cores, but these cores are thousands of kilometers below the surface and cannot be directly observed. Psyche, if it is indeed a bare core in space, would provide a unique opportunity to directly study the composition, structure, and magnetism of a planet's core, something that could only be predicted through theoretical models or indirectly through seismic waves. Second, Psyche could help us better understand the violent history of the early solar system. Scientific models suggest that in the first few 100 million years, violent collisions between planetary embryos created a series of celestial bodies and shaped the current structure of the solar system. If Psyche is indeed the remnant of such a collision, studying it would provide valuable experimental evidence for hypotheses about this process. Third, NASA's Psyche mission also opens up a path for applied space science and technology. To reach and study this asteroid, engineers must develop technology to control spacecraft from hundreds of millions of kilometers away, use fuel-efficient ion engines, and build advanced sensor systems to survey the surface and magnetic field of the celestial body. These technical advances not only serve Psyche, but also pave the way for deeper space missions in the future, including exploration of Jupiter, Saturn, and more distant asteroids. Finally, from a philosophical and humanistic perspective, studying Psyche also helps humans re-examine their place in the universe. For thousands of years, gold and precious metals have been associated with power, wealth, and civilization.
Now, when we discover a celestial body capable of containing a mass of metals beyond imagination, we're more aware that the real value lies not only in material resources, but also in knowledge, in understanding the vast universe. Psyche reminds humanity that space science is not only aimed at economic benefits, but also opens up new horizons of knowledge. In short, the scientific significance of studying Psyche lies in three key points: helping humans directly access the planet's core, providing evidence of the history of the formation of the solar system, and promoting the development of space technology. It is these values that are the reason NASA invested billions of dollars and decades of research to launch the Psyche mission instead of chasing the dream of getting rich from space gold, as many sensational news stories often mention.
After analyzing the three main aspects of the Asteroid 16 Psyche, the truth behind the concept of golden planet, the origin of the figure of 2.19 million USD per person, and the scientific value of studying this celestial body, we can draw some important conclusions, both scientific and social. First of all, it must be affirmed that Psyche is not a literal golden planet, as many sensational articles have described. It is not a pure gold block floating in the universe, but is mainly composed of iron, nickel, and some rare metals. The term golden planet is a form of exaggeration, which can easily mislead the public. However, this exaggeration also shows the special attraction of Psyche, as people always tend to associate discoveries in space with material value and wealth. Second, the hypothesis that every person on Earth would have 2.19 million USD if they mined Psyche is just a fun mathematical game, not reflecting practical possibilities. We do not have the technology to mine huge amounts of metal from a distant celestial body, and if that happened, the law of supply and demand would cause the value of gold, platinum, or iron to plummet. Therefore, the story of dividing gold for all mankind is nothing more than a pipe dream, like a metaphor for human curiosity and imagination before the universe. Third, the real value of Psyche lies in science and knowledge. With the hypothesis that this could be the remaining core of a primitive planet, Psyche allows us to directly access data that is not available even from Earth, where the metal core lies thousands of kilometers below the surface. Studying Psyche will open up understanding of the formation of the solar system, the role of collisions in planetary evolution, and at the same time promote modern space technology. These values are more sustainable and long-lasting than any precious metal dream. In addition, Psyche is also a testament to the need for balance between science and communication. On the one hand, the mass media's frequent emphasis on the economic aspect of Psyche has helped the public pay more attention to space missions. On the other hand, if we only focus on the prospect of wealth, we will ignore the core goal of science, expanding knowledge and deciphering the universe. Therefore, the responsibility of scientists and the press is to convey information accurately and attractively without losing the scientific essence. Finally, Psyche also evokes humanistic reflections. As humans turn their eyes to the cosmos and discover a celestial body with a metal value beyond imagination, we realize that true wealth lies not in material things, but in knowledge, creativity, and the ability to explore. Psyche is not just an asteroid, but also a symbol of the scientific spirit, always asking questions, always learning, and constantly pushing the limits of perception. In short, instead of dreaming of 2.19 million USD for each person, we should see Psyche as an opportunity to better understand the planet we live on, as well as the billion-year journey that formed the solar system. The true value of Psyche lies not in its material treasures, but in the treasure trove of knowledge it can bring to humanity.